You set your alarm the night before with the best of intentions. Wake up early, take care of yourself, start the day right. But when morning actually comes, it hits you like a wall. The grogginess is real, the body feels heavy, and the mind is still somewhere between sleep and consciousness. Your stomach is completely empty. It's been quietly fasting for 7, 8, maybe even 9 hours while you slept. And yet, before you reach for coffee, before you scroll your phone, before you do anything else, you do something small. Something that, on the surface, looks almost too simple to matter. You pour a glass of water, stir in a tablespoon or 2 of apple cider vinegar, and you drink it. That's it. That's the whole ritual. But what happens next, inside your body, at the cellular level, in your bloodstream and your gut and your liver, is anything but simple. In fact, what unfolds over the next few hours is one of the most fascinating biological sequences your body can experience on an empty stomach. And most people who drink apple cider vinegar every morning have absolutely no idea what's actually happening inside them. So today, we're going to change that. We're going to walk through the exact biological timeline, minute by minute, hour by hour, of what apple cider vinegar does to your body when you take it first thing in the morning. And by the end, you're going to look at that humble glass of diluted vinegar in a completely different way. Let's start from the very first second it touches your lips. The first 60 seconds, the acid awakening. The moment apple cider vinegar hits your tongue, your body doesn't wait. It reacts immediately, because your nervous system is always listening, always scanning, always preparing for what comes next. Your taste buds detect the sharp, intensely sour flavor of acetic acid, the primary active compound in apple cider vinegar. That signal travels almost instantly to your brain, specifically to the regions responsible for managing digestion. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Your digestive system begins activating before the liquid even leaves your mouth. This is called the cephalic phase of digestion, a neurological reflex that prepares your entire gastrointestinal system the moment your brain registers that food or drink is incoming. Your salivary glands respond immediately, flooding your mouth with saliva. This isn't random, it's your body's first line of defense, attempting to dilute and neutralize the acidity before it can damage your tooth enamel or irritate the delicate lining of your esophagus. Your esophagus itself begins contracting in smooth, coordinated waves, a process called peristalsis, pushing the liquid steadily downward toward your stomach. The acidity of apple cider vinegar, which has a pH of around 2 to 3, is being detected at every stage of this journey. And your body is already adapting, already responding, already working to process what you've just given it. Within 60 seconds, your brain has sent signals to your stomach, your pancreas, and your small intestine, all telling them to prepare. Something significant is coming. Minutes 2 to 5, the stomach acid revolution. Now the vinegar reaches your stomach, and this is where the first major biological shift begins. Your stomach has been in a resting state all night, producing minimal acid, moving slowly, essentially in standby mode. And then apple cider vinegar arrives, and it's like someone flipped a switch. Your stomach walls are lined with specialized cells called parietal cells, and these cells are exquisitely sensitive to changes in pH. When they detect the incoming acidity from the vinegar, they begin recalibrating your stomach's acid production with remarkable precision. Here's the part that surprises most people. Adding acid to your stomach doesn't automatically make it more acidic in a harmful way. Instead, your stomach's pH regulation system, one of the most sophisticated self-balancing mechanisms in the human body, uses this signal to optimize its acid environment for the digestive work ahead. For people who suffer from low stomach acid, a condition called hypochlorhydria that is far more common than most doctors acknowledge, this can be genuinely transformative. Low stomach acid leads to poor protein digestion, nutrient deficiencies, bloating after meals, and even increased vulnerability to gut infections. Apple cider vinegar on an empty stomach helps create the correct acidic environment that your stomach needs to break down food properly. At the same time, Your stomach lining begins secreting digestive enzymes, pepsin, lipase, and others, in preparation for the meal that will eventually arrive. Your body is essentially being primed. It's getting ready to digest and absorb nutrients with far greater efficiency than it would have if you'd skipped this morning ritual entirely. Minutes 5 to 15. Blood sugar stabilization begins. This is where apple cider vinegar starts revealing its most talked about metabolic superpower. Even though your stomach is completely empty, even though you haven't eaten a single thing yet, acetic acid is already beginning to influence how your body will handle carbohydrates for the rest of the day. Here's how it works. Acetic acid interferes with the activity of specific digestive enzymes, including alpha amylase and sucrase, that are responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates and sugars into glucose. By partially inhibiting these enzymes, apple cider vinegar slows down the rate at which carbohydrates are converted into blood sugar. This means that when you do eat breakfast, whether that's oatmeal, toast, fruit, or eggs, the glucose from that meal enters your bloodstream more gradually and more steadily. Instead of a sharp spike followed by a dramatic crash, you get a smooth, controlled rise in blood sugar. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Blood sugar spikes trigger large releases of insulin from your pancreas, and when insulin is chronically elevated, your cells begin losing their sensitivity to it. This is how insulin resistance develops, and insulin resistance is the underlying driver of type 2 diabetes, obesity, chronic fatigue, brain fog, and a long list of other modern health problems. Research published in peer-reviewed journals has shown that acetic acid can improve insulin sensitivity by up to 34% in some individuals. That's not a marginal improvement. That's a meaningful, measurable shift in how efficiently your cells respond to one of the most important hormones in your body. Your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard. Your cells absorb glucose more effectively. Your energy levels stay more consistent throughout the morning. All of this, set in motion within the first 15 minutes of drinking a diluted tablespoon of vinegar. Minutes 15 to 30. The liver detoxification switch. While your stomach and bloodstream are adjusting, your liver is entering a new phase of its morning work, and apple cider vinegar plays a direct role in what happens next. Your liver has been working through the night. It's been processing metabolic waste, filtering toxins, managing stored glycogen, and producing ketone bodies if your overnight fast was long enough. When acetic acid reaches your liver through your bloodstream, it undergoes a conversion. It becomes acetate, a short-chain fatty acid with significant metabolic effects. This acetate doesn't just sit there passively. It acts as a signaling molecule, activating specific genes that govern how your body stores and burns fat. Most importantly, it activates an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, which researchers have described as the body's metabolic master switch. When AMPK is activated, it sends a clear message throughout your entire body: stop storing, start burning. Fat synthesis slows down. Fatty acid oxidation accelerates. Your liver begins breaking down stored fat more aggressively and converting it into usable energy. Your cells, particularly in your muscles, become more efficient at pulling energy from fat rather than relying solely on glucose. This is a profound metabolic shift. It's the difference between a body that hoards energy and a body that actively uses what it has stored. And it begins within the first 30 minutes of drinking apple cider vinegar on an empty stomach. This is why so many people who adopt this morning habit report noticing a difference in their energy levels within the first week. Their bodies are genuinely, measurably operating in a more efficient fat-burning state, not because of some vague wellness claim, but because of specific enzymatic activity driven by acetate. Minutes 30 to 60. The hunger hormone shift. Around the 30-minute mark, something begins to happen that directly affects how hungry you feel and how much you'll eat for the rest of the day. Apple cider vinegar starts influencing your hunger hormones in two very specific, very powerful ways. The first hormone is ghrelin. Ghrelin is your body's primary hunger signal. It's the hormone that makes your stomach growl, that makes you think about food, that drives you toward the kitchen when you'd rather be working. Acetic acid suppresses ghrelin production. Your body produces less of it, which means the hunger signals being sent to your brain are quieter, less urgent, less demanding. you simply don't feel as hungry as you normally would at this point in the morning. The second hormone is peptide Y, sometimes written as pi. Peptide Y is a satiety hormone, produced primarily in your small intestine, that signals to your brain that you've had enough. Apple cider vinegar increases the production of peptide Y, so you're simultaneously producing less of the hormone that makes you hungry and more of the hormone that makes you feel full. This isn't a psychological trick or a placebo effect. This is real hormonal chemistry, measurable in the bloodstream, happening inside your body right now. The practical result is significant. People who drink apple cider vinegar before meals consistently report eating fewer calories throughout the day, not because they're trying to eat less, not because they're white-knuckling through hunger, but because their hormones are genuinely telling them. They're satisfied. Multiple studies have confirmed this effect, showing meaningful reductions in daily caloric intake among people who incorporate apple cider vinegar into their morning routine. Hour 1 to 2. Gut bacteria transformation. By the time an hour has passed since you drank that glass of diluted vinegar, the effects have migrated deep into your gastrointestinal tract. And this is where things get genuinely remarkable. Your gut is home to somewhere between 38 and 100 trillion microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, archaea, and viruses, collectively known as your gut microbiome. This ecosystem influences virtually every system in your body. Your immune system, your mood, your cognitive function, your inflammatory responses, your hormone production, your sleep quality. All of it is directly connected to the health of your gut microbiome. Apple cider vinegar, especially raw, unfiltered versions that contain what's known as the mother, introduces something valuable into this ecosystem. The mother is a colony of beneficial bacteria, enzymes, and proteins that form naturally during the fermentation process. When these compounds reach your gut, they begin interacting with your existing microbial community in meaningful ways. The acetic acid environment that apple cider vinegar creates is one that beneficial bacteria, particularly lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains, tend to thrive in. At the same time, it makes the environment less hospitable for harmful, pathogenic bacteria that cause inflammation, poor digestion, and immune dysfunction. Beyond the microbial balance, apple cider vinegar has been shown to strengthen the integrity of the gut lining itself. Your intestinal wall is held together by structures called tight junctions, essentially the seals between individual intestinal cells. When these tight junctions weaken, you get what's known as intestinal permeability, or leaky gut, a condition where partially digested food particles and toxins pass into the bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation. Apple cider vinegar helps reinforce those tight junctions. It supports a stronger, more resilient gut barrier, one that keeps the bad stuff out and lets the good stuff through. Many people who make apple cider vinegar a daily morning habit begin noticing improvements in digestion, less bloating, more regular bowel movements, less discomfort after eating, within just a few days. And while those surface-level changes are welcome, the deeper transformation happening at the microbial level is what drives the long-term health benefits. Hours 2 to 4. The fat oxidation peak. Several hours after drinking apple cider vinegar, your body enters what researchers have identified as its peak fat oxidation window, and acetic acid is directly responsible for amplifying it. Studies have shown that acetic acid increases the expression of genes involved in fatty acid oxidation by up to 50%. Let that sink in. Not a 5% improvement. Not a marginal nudge, a 50% increase in the genetic activity responsible for burning fat. Your mitochondria, the microscopic power plants inside every cell of your body, are working more efficiently during this window. They're pulling more fatty acids out of storage, breaking them down through a process called beta oxidation, and converting them into AP, the energy currency your body runs on. The fat being targeted during this window isn't just subcutaneous fat, the fat you can pinch beneath your skin. It includes visceral fat, the dangerous metabolically active fat that accumulates around your organs, particularly in the abdominal cavity. Visceral fat is not merely cosmetic. High levels of visceral fat are strongly associated with cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, cognitive decline, and shortened lifespan. Reducing visceral fat is one of the most important things you can do for your long-term health, and acetic acid directly targets it. This fat oxidation effect is amplified even further if you exercise during this 2 to 4 hour window after drinking apple cider vinegar. The combination of elevated AMP activity, improved insulin sensitivity, suppressed ghrelin, and increased fatty acid oxidation creates what researchers describe as a synergistic fat-burning state, meaning the combined effect is greater than any of these factors would produce on their own. If you work out in the morning and you've been drinking apple cider vinegar before your workout, your body is primed to burn fat at a level it simply cannot reach under normal conditions. The long game. What happens after weeks and months? Everything we've covered so far describes what happens on a single morning after a single glass of diluted apple cider vinegar. But the most powerful changes don't happen in a single session. They compound. They accumulate. They build on each other, day after day, until your baseline metabolic function is operating at a fundamentally higher level than it was before. After 1 to 2 weeks of consistent daily use, your insulin sensitivity begins improving in a measurable, sustained way. Your cells become more efficient at responding to insulin even on days when you haven't had your morning vinegar, because you've been training that response repeatedly. After 3 to 4 weeks, your gut microbiome begins reflecting the changes. The ratio of beneficial to harmful bacteria shifts. Your gut lining is stronger. Your digestive system is functioning with greater ease and regularity. After 8 to 12 weeks, the studies become particularly compelling. Research has shown that people who consumed apple cider vinegar daily lost significantly more body weight, particularly visceral fat, over a 12-week period compared to a control group eating identical diets. And they didn't change anything else. Same calories, same activity levels, same lifestyle. The only variable was the daily apple cider vinegar. Your appetite regulation also becomes more natural over time, not something you have to consciously manage, but something your hormones manage for you because they've been consistently recalibrated. People often describe it as craving less, feeling satisfied sooner, and no longer being driven by the erratic hunger swings that used to derail their eating habits. Over months, some individuals also report improvements in skin clarity, energy consistency, mental focus, and even mood, all downstream effects of a healthier gut microbiome and more stable blood sugar. What you must know before you start. Apple cider vinegar is powerful, and power, used carelessly, can cause harm. Before you begin this morning ritual, there are several things you absolutely need to know. Not to scare you away from it, but to make sure you do it correctly and safely. The most important rule is this: never drink apple cider vinegar undiluted. Ever. Straight apple cider vinegar has a pH between 2 and 3, roughly as acidic as stomach acid itself. Drinking it undiluted can cause chemical burns to your esophagus, permanent damage to your tooth enamel, and serious irritation to your digestive tract. Always dilute 1 to 2 tablespoons in a full 8-ounce glass of water, minimum. Some people prefer to dilute it even further, especially when first starting out, and that's completely fine. Drink it through a straw whenever possible. This minimizes direct contact between the acid and your teeth. After drinking it, rinse your mouth thoroughly with plain water. Do not brush your teeth immediately, as this can actually spread the acid further across your enamel. Wait at least 30 minutes before brushing. If you have any of the following conditions, speak with your doctor before starting: gastroparesis, peptic ulcers, active acid reflux or GERD, kidney disease, or osteoporosis, because long-term high-dose acetic acid consumption can affect bone density in vulnerable individuals. If you're taking medications, particularly insulin, diuretics, or digoxin, apple cider vinegar can interact with them in ways that affect their effectiveness. Always check with a healthcare provider if you're on any prescription medications. Choose the right product. Opt for raw, unfiltered, organic apple cider vinegar with the mother. The mother is not a gimmick. It's a living colony of beneficial bacteria and enzymes that contains the most bioactive compounds. Filtered, clear apple cider vinegar has been stripped of these compounds and is significantly less effective. Start slow. Begin with 1 teaspoon diluted in water and gradually increase to 1 to 2 tablespoons over 1 to 2 weeks as your digestive system adjusts. The complete biological picture. Let's bring it all together. From the moment that glass of diluted apple cider vinegar touches your lips, your body enters a cascade of precisely coordinated biological events. Your nervous system activates your digestive system before the liquid even reaches your stomach. Your stomach acid regulation optimizes itself for the day's digestion. Your insulin sensitivity begins improving before you've eaten a single calorie. Your liver switches from storage mode to burning mode through AMP activation. Your hunger hormones recalibrate. Ghrelin drops. Peptide Y rises. Your gut microbiome begins shifting toward a healthier, more beneficial balance. Your mitochondria enter peak fat oxidation mode 2 to 4 hours after consumption. And all of this unfolds from one simple, consistent morning habit. Not from a supplement with 17 ingredients. Not from an expensive protocol that requires a coach and a spreadsheet. From water and vinegar, taken first thing in the morning, before the rest of the world wakes up. The bigger truth about small habits. Here's what no one tells you about habits like this. The reason they work isn't just the biology. It's the consistency. It's the signal you send to your body every single morning when you choose to take care of it before anything else demands your attention. Your body is not a passive machine that simply responds to what you eat and how much you exercise. It's a dynamic, adaptive, intelligent biological system that is constantly taking cues from your behavior. When you consistently provide it with the right inputs, the right compounds, at the right time, in the right amounts, it responds by optimizing itself. It becomes more efficient, more resilient, more capable. Apple cider vinegar, taken consistently on an empty stomach, is one of those inputs. Not the only one. Not a magic solution. Not a replacement for good food, adequate sleep, and regular movement, but a genuine, science-backed, biologically meaningful tool that costs almost nothing and takes less than 60 seconds to use. The question isn't whether it works. The science is clear that it does. The question is whether you're willing to show up for it every morning, even when you're groggy, even when you're rushed, even when it would be easier to skip it. Because the people who experience the long-term benefits of this habit aren't the ones who tried it for 3 days and gave up. They're the ones who made it a non-negotiable part of their morning, as automatic as brushing their teeth, as consistent as the sunrise. Your body is always listening to what you give it. Every single morning, it wakes up ready to respond to your choices. The question is simply this: what will you choose to give it?